can give
Yes.
all your sympathies in the chat to David this morning. How are you, Ripley? Oh, good
Mm.
grief. David is just David just said that I think he was suggesting that he was going to the toilet on a regular basis because the amount of tea he was drinking.
Dear
Do you
God, look at
understand?
the size difference of our teacups here.
I
Absolutely
and then no,
emasculating me with that. Look
teacup
at the size
size.
of that thing
And
right
it's not
there.
that you so hold it close to
I'm
your
not
head to
messing around.
get scale so that we're on the same sort of scale because everybody knows the size of it. David can't actually fit the teacup and his head in the same picture. There we
My
go.
God, that's a
It used
soup
to
bowl
be
with a handle.
yeah. It used to be big watches, and now it's big cups.
Big David, a fan of big tea
Yeah.
under the auspices of the man. There we go. Yes, that's the reason why you're going to the bathroom every 20 minutes, David, if you're drinking cups of
Every
tea
hour.
of that scale. Yes. Well, I think it's probably going to increase if you keep going like that. Either that or your kidneys are gonna be the
I
best functioning thing about you.
exactly. They are perfect. They are to spec. They are exactly 1 hour. So I guess that's one of the
That's
good
right.
things I could I
Plus
could
or
learn from this
minus.
experience. Exactly.
Good stuff. Right. Well, we will have a little bit of hit miss maybe later on when we're joined by who would be joined by Kevin and the guy I think are joining us. And apologies in advance as David gets rid of his audio and visual every time he sneezes or blows his nose. But there we go. Right. Let's clap in and we will get on with our show. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. You see, that was much better. Oh, we have a watch.
I'm
What do we
beyond
have?
excited for this watch.
Beyond excited. Well, let's get straight onto some watches then. David,
Yes.
what watch have you got on and what are you beyond excited about?
This was fun because every once in a while, like little hiccups happen when brands send stuff out. So the first time they sent out an empty box and they sent an email like, when you receive it, maybe can you just let us know if you received the empty box? And which I did. But this is the IFLW, which is I freaking love watches, and a collab between them and Bulova, which is very
Bulova.
cool.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. And what
It's
is
a
it I'm seeing? Is that a kid's painting?
It's a
From the
super
description?
Seville mural, which is inspired by the graffiti artists of New York from the 60s and 70s. And it's hand painted. They shared a little video with me on the process. So somebody, produces all of these, I think 300 iterations of this dial. And I compared mine with some others that I found, reviewed by others. And it's always the same pattern, but there are little nuances and little differences between mine and others. So it's freehand 100%, even though the layout is the same. So I just thought that this was really freaking cool, and I've been wearing it quite a bit since I received it, because it's just amazing to be able to wear somebody's freehand work of art without having to spend tens of thousands as we normally do sometimes, with the Pateks and and all the others. Yeah, and whoever else, like there's so many. Anita Porcher, for example, she's the most famous, or arguably one of the most famous enamelers, and she's done some terrific job for almost every luxury brand that you could name. But of course, every one of those dials cost more than this entire watch, which is 1,200 euros. And what I also like about it is that it has the Bulova's movement. This is a super high frequency, highly accurate movement. So it's accurate to within just a couple of seconds every year. So it really has this urban companion kind of vibe, this watch, because it's accurate. You can rely on it, but it's also freehand in some way. So I quite like that.
So do you intend just in the first instance sending them back the empty box?
Oh yeah, well maybe. I'm sure they would
empty
appreciate
box.
it. Can you just check the box? No, I would never do that.
Is this part of Bulova's 150th? Is this just something they've done, or is it part of the 150th anniversary?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
It does bring me on, interestingly, to the fact that Bulova have this 150th anniversary documentary exclusive on Amazon Prime. We have an article. It's actually a sponsored post, although I'm not doing this as part of that sponsored post. I wish to make a wider point. So there we go. There's Bulova's. Anybody watched it yet? I haven't. David Ripley.
No, I
No,
don't
I
have
will
Amazon
after I
Prime.
will after this. I have Prime Video. I happily use Amazon Prime for things that can't be bothered to carry to my car from the store and all the odds and ends in life. So yeah, I'm gonna watch this. I've watched so much trash, not just on Amazon Prime, but Netflix, all of them, that
Mhm.
this is actually gonna be something that has meaning in my life, is interesting, it's probably gonna be very well produced. And I mean, as someone who's watched a season of Too Hot to Handle, like, I am not gonna be the one to get all holier than thou when it comes to consuming digital media.
What's too hot to handle?
If you have to ask Rick, it means you're a better man than me. Some absolute garbage Netflix show.
Okay, is it like normally too hot to handle? I would associate with stolen goods. Is it on
No.
that side of things, or is it too
N-
hot to handle referring to like the female form or male form, depending on
It's the
what's
latter, but then they're
it's the
taking
latter?
directions from like a looks like an
Scrutiny.
air freshener kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm not gonna get into it. This is not
Okay.
this. We're so far off
This
of,
is
off of relevance at this point.
Well, my kind of point was, so Bulova have this movie out, 150th anniversary. Christopher Ward produced a film this week for their launch of the Going Loco in Acapulco, and IWC are getting all movie with obviously with F1, but also with their the brilliant failure or whatever it's called movie. What's going on with watch firms thinking that they should be movie studios? Is this just the latest attempt at watch companies trying to do their own marketing and media, and or is it just that they're bored? It's like, yeah, we'll just pick watches. They're like hundreds of years old. Would I do something else? Let's do television, and they do it well.
Who knows? I appreciate a good collaboration between a watch brand and a good director and
Mm-hmm.
cinematographer. So if they can find good ones, then I'd be down for it. We recently published an article about IWC's little movie, which was like 3-4 minutes long,
Mm-hmm.
about the engineer and Argento's role in it and how it was unsuccessful. Not Genta, but the engineer SL that he designed. So how that was a failure at first time, right? And I quite like that, and the production value was extremely high. You really felt like you were watching something from them, like some top shelf production from one of these larger streaming sites or whatever. So overall, it was quite something. And they listed all the artists that they worked with for it. So I can appreciate that because brands with so much money to spend, they should stand behind and support artists. So I feel like, okay, sure, let's do that. I'm not against it at all. And if it's about history, then that's all the better, because even in our fast-paced world where people have 3 to 5 seconds of attention span, sometimes history you cannot explain in 3 seconds or 5 seconds. You have to produce a movie, and 150 years, it's a long, long time. And Bulova has had an incredible role in timekeeping and in watchmaking. So I'm actually excited to watch it. I'm just not excited about getting Amazon Prime for it.
It'll be on some. We'll send you our pat. If somebody wants to lend David their username and password to Amazon Prime, then
Yeah,
stick it
I
in
don't
the
like
chat.
Bezos at all. I feel like I want to
That's a
spend any
that's a
a
different
penny on.
subject.
Yeah.
That's a different subject.
Yeah.
Good. Ripley, your thoughts on all this movie making magic from watch brands?
Um, I like the movie making magic of it. I don't know if I want them to be making informational videos or trying to give opinions about the watch that they themselves made. I don't think that's the video content they should be doing. But I had a good time watching the IWC thing. That isn't something that anyone else except them can really put out. Who's going to go hire some Gerald Genta looking actor? To like that's not what happens in the watch media landscape. So it is kind of an interesting supplementary thing they can do to tell their story in a very consumable way. No one has to read anything. It's not long form. It tells a little story from their archives, shines a little light on it in a very well produced manner.
Mhm.
But I like it. I think it adds a good flavor, and if it's done well, done tastefully, and is more about sharing the heritage than trying to sell me something, I think, I think we're all the better for having that content out there.
So F1 movie is on its way. Ariel would really like to be here for this conversation because he's a big movie buff.
Oh, and he
Do we
loves F1, just absolutely
I
loves
know
F1.
it's Ariel's being torn in two directions. It's like, why am I watching this?
It's something I
Do
love about something I could not care less about.
sponsored by something I love. Anyway, I is it going to be any good, this F1 movie? I just feel that it's not, but I don't know. Any strong feelings? Can you really make an F1 movie
I
without
mean,
just shoehorning drama into it that doesn't really exist? In like it's all happening at the same time. Everybody knows that in a whole season, 2 or 3 interesting things happen. They're gonna have to try and make 2 or 3 interesting things happen every 10 minutes in this film.
yeah, but I don't think it's gonna be about the drama on the track. Just like real
Mm.
F1, it's become an absolute soap opera of just the inter-team politics and the egos and the drivers and the sex scandals and whatever else. So like, Christian Horner, So I mean, I guess it is, it is.
Who, what, where, when?
It's going to be, I think there's a lot of meat on the bone there. It can be an absolutely boring race, but everything surrounding it going into that weekend was far more exciting than the
Uh-huh.
actual race. And so to make a Hollywood movie about it, you just need some cool action scenes and whatever stories behind it. And then you got Brad Pitt wearing a vintage IWC. So the recipe for success is all there. I'm sure it's going to be quite entertaining.
David, are you going to be more entertained by it as an F1 fan or as a watch spotter?
Uh, I'm not holding my breath for either of those. I don't really like the dramatization of Formula One. I don't watch the whatever what's that Netflix show,
Drive to
Drive to
Survive.
Survive. Yeah, I've been watching Formula One for like 30 plus years, and I've been
Yeah.
I've been perfectly fine without the magnification of these issues and the generation of further tensions and whatever. So whatever happens on track and maybe right after it,
Mhm.
during the podium ceremony is what I care about. The rest is just nonsense. It's soap opera basically at that point.
I wouldn't mind if it was like an engineering documentary. That would be interesting.
Mm.
Like it was, what's the Matt Damon film where he's the genius? He's a cleaner that solves maths equations. I wouldn't mind if it was more like that. If it was
Goodwill
the
Hunting.
Goodwill Hunting. Who's the famous designer within F1? He keeps moving teams. He just moved recently.
Adrian Newey.
Adrian Newey.
Adrian Newey. I wouldn't mind if it was like a tour into Adrian Newey's mind through the eyes of the Goodwill Hunting style of drama. That
Yeah.
would be interesting.
That would be
But
Mm.
fascinating.
cars going round and round in circles is boring enough as it is every other Sunday. I do enjoy it,
Well, what I want to see
despite the
is
fact
if
it
you're
maybe
going to
sounds
do
like I don't. But
a fictitious dramatization, do it
Mm,
on what goes on in the technical development of trying to
mm,
be shisty about seeing what's going on the other team's projects and
exactly.
scalping some talent to help your program for
Yep.
the next, regulation change
Yeah.
or something like that. Go ahead, go that part. Do the Ocean's 11 version of
Yeah.
that where we've got like,
Moneyball, Ocean's 11,
yeah,
Goodwill
Lawrence
Hunting.
Stroll putting up the millions of dollars to fund
Yeah.
some like big
See,
heist to steal
why
the
don't
Mhm.
new
we ask
Ferrari
us?
tech before the season. Yeah, like show me that. I want to see that
Yeah,
instead of,
exactly.
you
I
know,
think
the driver
chat
side of things.
yeah, Chat GPT, time for you to write our version of the screenplay. I think we could do a good
Well,
job of
that's
it.
going to be worse
You
than any of the Watch Brands
you
movies.
would you wouldn't need, we would focus in on the watches. We would need to shoehorn in every watch brand somehow into the conversations. And that's the problem. The problem is for us watch geeks, it's not going to be realistic because the only watch brand they're going to mention is IWC, and we know everybody else is running around in nicer, some not so nicer watches than IWC, but it's
Hmm.
just going to seem like the IWC show.
Well, I do miss that about Karl F. Booker, rest in peace. When they were sponsoring the John Wick movies, it was like some pretty heavy product placement.
Yeah, some big billboards and that.
Yeah, there's that scene where they're both wearing Karl F. Booker's fighting in front of not one but two
Two
like moving
cars websites.
advertisement for. Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's peak product placement. But as a watch fan, I'm watching it going, oh yeah, look at that. There's two dudes fighting and four watches in frame. This is incredible.
That's
that's
right.
cool.
Good stuff. Grad, well, I don't know when the F1 movie comes out, but I think it's quite soon. It's an Apple production, so we'll see whether it
This
encourages
this
Apple.
June or this July, this summer for sure.
Is it June? Good stuff. Right, let's talk. Yeah, I don't know whether to talk about. Well, let's talk about. Okay, I'm going to be brave because I know there are some strong opinions on this particular watch. Let's talk and the backstory, shall we say? Let's find it. Hands on. Uh, Gerald Charles Maestro GC 39 25th anniversary edition watch. Now, maybe we'll not get into the concept that this is a 25th anniversary of, because there are other people online
Yeah.
that are fond of that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you can really stand up that this is a 25th anniversary. Like there is actually a 25th of anything to celebrate. But let's focus in on the watch for the moment. What do we think of this new oversized version of the Genta inspired, just a pull through from the IWC chat? Gerald Charles. Is this brand? What did this brand do at Watches and Wonders? Was it present?
Yeah, it was present. It had this, some new chronographs, and then that tennis ball watch, which we covered
Oh yeah.
as well, which is, they do a lot in the world of tennis. This is a one with a dark blasted titanium case and literally the color of a tennis ball that's,
Mm,
going to be worn by their tennis ambassadors.
Mm.
This is at the far opposite other side. If that one was super sporty, this is probably their most striking and resplendent model. It's not the most expensive, but it is probably the most visually resplendent. It's titanium, no precious metals, lapis dial in the center. It's based on a historic piece that Gerald Genta actually designed and that they made in small numbers that had a sliding hour complication. This is like the Jurassic Park version. Everything's kind of bigger, more grand, and upsized.
mm,
And it has a jumping hours instead of a sliding hours complication. Has a new style of technique that uses a chemical based micro etching to do that. It's not guilloche, but like that radial pattern that almost
yeah.
looks like tiny fragments of diamonds. It's really cool. I mean, it's like such a statement piece from them that I almost wish it was just done in platinum or white gold or something to just fit the bill for that, because it is quite expensive for a titanium watch. But it is a, you know, big piece. It's bigger than any of it's like 42 mil. It's bigger than any of the other models they've made with this case silhouette. It's also more of a square than a rectangle, so it just looks chunkier in general. It's not super heavy because it is titanium. It's not super thick, but it's a quite striking version of a Gerald Charles, which was already a rather notably visually distinct watch.
Yeah, at $42,000 for a titanium watch. Where's their justification in this? It's a jump hour movement. I don't get how. I
Uh,
mean, this goes back to last week's conversation when David suggested it's just 25 years worth of inflation
yeah,
from something just piled up to get to
looks like it.
$42,000.
I
Any
mean,
justification on $42,000 price tag for this?
uh, I don't want to justify it, but I think if you want to work with titanium on this level, if you look at the bezel, look at the
Mm,
case, maybe the case not so much, but this multi-tier,
Well, the case
um,
is like a ton of components. This isn't just
yeah,
like a middle case. It's quite an elaborate watch. But yeah, David's right as far as the manufacturing side.
mm.
yeah, it's
And
probably difficult to work with titanium on this scale and on this level to make it look good. I'm not saying that that justifies the price, but if you look at the dial, it's really complicated. The movement, maybe it's not, maybe it's definitely a modular, solution on the dial side, but it's still pretty cool.
mhm,
And I think at some point, some of these brands, what they think they do is that, okay, we look at how much whatever, costs, a nice Jaeger or a nice, maybe not a nice AP, but something that is, relatively high. And then they allow people to step out of the realm of the big brands and luxury watches and be able to spend more, because sometimes for some collectors, as terrible as it sounds, these have to be more expensive for them to care. And if it's 20K, then they're like, oh well, I guess you're not so serious about watchmaking then. But if it's
yeah,
42,300, then they're like, oh, so now I think I understand why. It's like, no, you don't. It just feels good to pay twice as much and not see all the other guys wear it as well because they couldn't afford 42K. And when you are rebuilding a brand from scratch, you have the opportunity to reposition it. And I think maybe that's what's also happening here. Let's try and see if we can get away with the rubber strap titanium clad watch for 42K, because if Richard Mille can get away with it and AP can get away with it and all the others can get away with, rubber strap equipped 40K watches and 100K watches and 500K watches, then why should we charge only 20K? Let's try with 42. So maybe that's what's going
300.
on.
I quite like the
Yeah.
class. The class looks quite cool. If it's a 42 mil
It's
watch,
huge.
effectively, why is it called the GC39?
That's the name of the model. That's what it was back when it was originally produced, designed by Gerald Genta. So, under the
Right.
old guise of the brand, it was the GC39. They
Okay.
revived it, but it's not a one-to-one recreation. So this is the GC39 25th anniversary edition.
Right. Okay. It felt like it should be called the GC42 if that's the size it was. But
It
what do I know?
No, that would make sense, and I
Nothing
mean,
matters
it's
anymore.
quite expensive, but relative to the brand's other models, the pricing makes sense. Like, you look at people balk at the price of all of these. Like, you look at
Uh-huh.
the standard titanium, like, sport models, three-hand date type of things, and they always seem like twice as much as what you'd probably think about it going into it, and that's just the nature of this brand. You could say the same thing about a lot of older brands like, AP, Patek, whatever, but we're just more accustomed to they've always been expensive for like 100 plus years. This,
Mm.
it's a more relatively new brand, but they're positioning themselves at this price point. They'd make a really nice watch, but it is very much a Marmite aesthetic. If you don't like this K shape, you're pretty much going to hate everything they do. But like the skeletonized watch is like 65 grand or something like
Mm.
that. And the only precious metal on it is the micro rotor. So, this is just kind of par for the course for them. It's not exorbitantly expensive relative to their other offerings, but to get a titanium watch on a rubber strap at over 40 grand is
Mhm.
objectively, premium luxury pricing.
Yeah. The K shape of these is growing on me, I have to say. But like, and more notes in the chat about the 25 on the dial ruining it from Azan and earlier from Pacific. Uh, is the jump hour, is this a good use of a jump hour complication? I feel that this would actually be better if it wasn't jump hour, but actually the dial continued to rotate through the hour so that you could more quickly. I don't know. I just
Like the original.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, this doesn't feel like a good use of a jump hour.
The original is an objectively more elegant expression of this
Mhm.
general design. This does take it to kind of the next level in terms of overall resplendence. But since the original one did have a sliding hour,
Mhm.
you had to go for like an arc-shaped aperture. This being a jump hour, they could have just done it with a single one that properly displayed the digit, but they're trying to adhere to the old design. So, I mean, and the other one, the arc-shaped window was there as a necessity for the design. This,
Yes.
it doesn't have to be. So I don't know. It's an interesting move to update the movement in such a manner,
Yeah.
but it's their own module that they developed. So I guess they
Mm.
wanted to use that.
Fair enough. Right, let's see who's waiting to come in. Kevin is on his way. Kevin, are you there? Earth to Kevin. Kevin is appearing now. Good morning, Kevin. He's thinking about it. Potato internet in London as usual. Morning, Kevin. How are you?
Me okay?
We can hear you fine and lovely and dandy. Yes. Are you well, sir?
Excellent. Yes. I'm very well, thank you. It's a lovely day down here. It's beautiful already. S- Something must be happening. Something bad's going to happen, I'm sure. It's too good.
So on its way. This is the positivity of the British character shines through again. Yeah, if it's nice, that's just a sign that something's about to go wrong. Right, good stuff. Well, we've had a chat about Watcher 2 so far, but let's deal with one more bit of business news while we wait for Guy to join us. This is from Watch Pro.
Sure.
Billionaire investor Bill Ackman tightens control at Bremont, increases shareholding to 63%, and the boys, the original English brothers, are now gone from the board. They were still on the board as non-execs, I think, but they're now away. They are brand ambassadors only. Now, I like this other headline that I found about Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman, well, you can go Google Bill Ackman's politics and decide whether you agree with it or not. But I also quite like this headline, although it's about something different. This is from the Motley Fool. Does Bill Ackman know something that Wall Street doesn't? The billionaire is piling into a stock that analysts recommend selling, but Ackman thinks will soar. Not sure that's necessarily a reference to Bremont, but what do we think? If you were going to own 63% of anything in the watch world right now, would you choose Bremont as the thing you would own 63% of? I also note that it does say this is this isn't a Pershing Square or Pershing Capital, whatever his business is called, investment. This is a personal interest because he wondered. This just sounds like the English brothers told him, right, Bill, you need to have a story about how you got into watches. And so Bill's story is that he was in London and he just wandered past the boutique and looked in the window, and there it was. There was Bremont. Like, of all the watch stores in all the world, you had to wander into ours and decide to buy the company.
So he crashed into a farmer's watch selling playing field, and
two crashes. The company now has 2 crashes involved in it.
So
Ripley.
he's a billionaire. You know, when rich people want to treat themselves, they buy a watch. When a billionaire wants to treat himself and has already a hoard of watches, he buys a watch brand. And you can't buy Patek Philippe. You can't even buy all of Patek Philippe's watches. And Mr. Stern doesn't want to sell them to you unless you're above a certain income level anyway. So I think, you know, for this, Bremont, it was probably not too hard to put in an offer for a majority stake in it. And now he has a watch brand and gets to play with that in the same way I get to play with like the crown or bezel on the watches that I own.
About 3 years ago, I was in London. I walked by a watch boutique called Bremont. I stepped into the store, fell in love with the watches, thought they were show more. Not going to show more. Doesn't need any more. David, Kevin, good morning. Guy, how are you?
Good morning. What is the story about Bremont?
Oh, is this
Bill
true?
Ackman. Sorry? There we go.
This isn't true. If that pretty much just sums up like what needs to be said. It could be like the Onion version of watch media right now, and this headline could just perfectly fit there.
I have always I
heard the opposite to this. I heard there was some and this might be the result of some very unhappy times and feeling he didn't get the great deal that he wanted to.
So he's taken on more. Are we saying that the money paid to increase his personal shareholding, there maybe wasn't a lot of money involved? It was maybe hold on a second, I've bought a pup here, you better give me some more of it or else. Allegedly.
I wouldn't be surprised that may be the case, or that it was
3% of zero is still zero. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it depends who he got. Who did he get the? Does it say where the percentage came from?
I haven't actually looked. I'm not honestly sure. It's also entirely possible that it could be new shares. We'll somebody go and have a quick look on Company's House and see if it's been posted yet as to what the shares.
It won't be posted yet, but that is quite. I imagine it could be.
I think it might be some new shares. Anyway, so
new shares to hide a capital infusion for a brand that's not necessarily the most liquid.
Yes,
it is honestly. I look at a lot of investments. Like I've sold my company, I've helped other people. Like what he paid for what was it? A 16 million turnover company that's losing 13 million or whatever it was.
What?
Like,
oh my goodness.
To spend, so they spent 26 million turning over 13 is like why anyone would ever want that or claim it's a brand that has any value.
But they're basing on stuff in the future. They're looking to make a huge profit in the future, so they're willing to make a loss now.
No, but that's not the point. You could have put that you could have used that money to start a new brand or revive a brand that wasn't actively losing money.
Guy's about to mention Romagna again.
Speculate.
I could mention Romagna again. No, I will mention. When I was quite young, and I worked
Here we
at.
go.
I know this is not La Mania. I was quite young, and I worked at a branding agency, and this is going to split the room where I think Kevin and Rick might understand, and Rick and David are not going to understand. But we had a project to revive Spam,
Yay!
the
Really?
original Spam in a can.
Spam, spam,
Mhm.
spam, spam, spam.
And the-
Wonderful spam.
And the guy, the planner who was working for us, turned around and went, "For the amount you're spending, just buy a new brand. Don't bother." And that was a big learning moment for me. I was like, yeah, you can't polish a
So-
turd.
When you went into when you were called by the director of the PR agency or the branding agency, we've got this new project. Oh, it's top secret. Here's the NDA, and you signed it. Then you went in and they said, "Yeah, we're going to rebrand Spam." Did your countenance fall?
Well, they wanted us to help. They had this idea. Spam had the idea that Spam could be like marketed to students as like an after pub
Health food.
food or whatever. And wanted us to make it
It's
happen.
actual food. Ripwood, do you know what Spam is?
Of course, I'm
Yeah.
I'm part Japanese. You know, the
Ah,
spam
yes.
musubi is a celebrated roll of
Japanese,
Pacific Islander cuisine, and
Yeah,
it gets
true,
it gets
true.
used by the Asians probably more than anyone else.
You
The
would have been more
problem it
used in
has
in
is
that meeting than we were.
you can cook it and make it incredibly palatable, but the way it comes out of the can is just so upsetting that you don't even want to cook it after you open it. And I think that would have been the problem. It also just looks like wartime rations. Like, you know, you can't change the
It is.
iconic can, but like nothing about that looks remotely appetizing. And that's kind of how I feel about modern Braemont. I really like Braemont as a brand. I liked a lot of
It's
their
just how
old
it comes out
watches.
the packaging.
And then all of the new stuff is just like, oh
Gone full
man, that's just
circle.
not it. And then just like again and again. So I
Maybe-
think
maybe-
there's some allegories here as far as
Maybe
Yeah,
the
but there's all those
solution-
people that like the old ones, but they weren't buying them. This is the point. Like everyone's
well,
like, "Oh,
that was
so
it. I
good,"
had
but
respect for them though. It was too expensive for me to pay that for that. But if I had a lot of money and just encountered some of the old models, I like a lot of the old Supermarine stuff. They were quirky. They had a unique design language. Once you got to the bigger case diameters, the pilot's watches were really cool. The whole triptych case thing, at least that's unique to them. It was too expensive for me to spend, but I could totally see myself at a different income level picking up a couple of them because I liked them in the same way I might like buy a Seiko or something, you know, in my lifestyle. Now it just lost that kind of uniqueness, and the uniqueness that they're trying to do doesn't feel original. So I don't think the brand now is better than it was before. I kind of liked it when it was this bizarre, plucky British brand with its overt fixation on planes, even when they're making a dive watch. And now it seems a little bit confused. It's kind of like when your friend is just like had way too much to drink, and they're yeah, under all of that, they're still a good person, but right now they are not acting their best.
I think the solution for this is the Scottish solution applied to Spam, which is you deep fat fry it, because that's a delicacy in Scotland. Just deep fat fry, just add more calories, just make it fatter, bigger, stupider, and that'll be
into
the
a Panerai.
solution. So yeah, make it into a Panerai basically. Right. Peter has a question in the chat about Bremen. My question is, does he want to earn more profit for the company, or does he have a vision, dedication, conception to lead them? In other words, they've made so many losses recently. Is he just looking to use those losses by making a super profit for like 2 years at one stage and extract
well,
any
my
remaining
guess
value?
is that you don't make he doesn't make his money from the company making money. He makes the money from selling the company.
So
he'll make his money back on the sale of the company being profitable rather, or even trying to break even on it. I think the problem they've got, my take on it, is they had a very good idea and they had a very good strategy, and they rushed stuff to get it done for Watches and Wonders last year, and they didn't execute. Like the idea of like what $2,000 watch for adventurers that you buy in airports, I think was really good. I think that's probably where they should go, but they just didn't execute it very well.
Yeah,
I
I
have
mean,
to agree with you about the fact that I think they did rush some of the products for last year. But saying that, this year's revelations are better than last year. So, hopefully third time lucky next year. They'll crack everybody's minds open, and hopefully everybody will be on board, saying
But
what
I
wonderful
think it's
products they
probably
are.
not a Watches and Wonders crowd either. I don't think it's a watch enthusiast watch. It's a, someone talked about, I think it was John Mayer talked about airport watches, and it's a good value airport watch, at 2-3 grand. I thought when they bought out Jimmy Chin as their brand ambassador, and I love Jimmy Chin, and it's like that's a good representation of what they're after. And then they bought out like gold tourbillons to climb that.
Yeah,
Like, what are
yeah.
you
I don't know
doing?
what they're doing with that. No idea.
Okay, so before we move on to hit miss, maybe quick number from each of you. In what year does Bremen next turn a legitimate profit? Not by just moving numbers around or because somebody put in a load of money, but an actual profit on sale. Give me a number. Currently, for anyone listening, it's the year 2025, just in case you're tuning in here in the year 2050 and Bremen still hasn't made a profit. And what year does he choose to sell the business? There you go. Two numbers, Guy. Year of
I think they'll be the
profitability,
same.
year of next sale.
20. So I think they probably need to get it to like Christopher Ward numbers. So he needs to get it, need to double and a bit the sales. I'm guessing 2030 to 2032, or it'll be bust.
Or it'll be bust. So what we're really saying is they just need to produce a chiming Bremen. Is that what we're saying? One that just dings at 12 o'clock. And everybody goes, oh my goodness, a watch that makes a noise.
Kevin, a watch that makes noise at a very good price. I like the guys at Christopher Ward. So watch that is complicated at a very good price is what they've done at Christopher Ward.
Kevin, year of profitability, year of sale.
I'm going to go slightly newer than that. I think 2029, tax year 2029.
Tax year, you've got.
Yeah. Well, basically, I think they need to either do something with the wing. I think that's the biggest asset.
Hold on, Kevin, are you claiming they're going to sell off all their property to become profitable?
No, I'm not saying that. They could do that tomorrow and be profitable. I'm thinking
build a load of flats while they're off it.
Well, it's prime real estate. It really is. It's in Headley, for God's sake. It's prime real estate.
And just move back to an industrial estate in the East End of London.
Yeah, if they do that, you're right, Kevin. That is what they should be profitable.
David,
I think they need to do. The wing is far too big for what it is, basically. Yeah.
David, when, if ever, will Bremen become profitable?
Well, that's a good question. I think we've seen miracles turn around, so maybe they could pull something off within the next 2 years. I would not be too surprised if they finally somehow manage to crack the code. I mean, if you're so far off, in some fields of life, what happens is that you just find your rhythm like right after that. So I'm not writing them off right now, but I agree that this can go on for only so long. So within the next 5 years, there has to be some positive change, or else the whole thing is just going down.
Ripley.
Yeah, I'd agree. By 2030, they're going to either have to have sorted something out, or they will, no longer be the same company they are today if they still exist. I think they could easily turn a profit if they just sold off the wing entirely. And I know they put a lot of money into it, but then just went to a different type of production method, because what they built out with the wing was really more geared for the old Bremont of, we're going to do more stuff in house. It's going to be at a higher price point. We're going to have more control over it. And that's just not the new Bremont, which is trying to compete with like the $2,000 airport watch. Be the British version of like a Tissot or something. You don't necessarily need all of it. It's kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You either need Swatch Corp levels of production and just say, we're going to just do all of this stuff, or you need to just kind of opt for the more modular approach of sourcing components from suppliers and do it that way. But it's such a large cost that it's this big thing that they have capabilities, but not exactly what they need. And it's not exactly something that's going to you know, aside from eventually maybe decreasing their production costs if you go invest enough money into it, it's not going to be something that's going to be the thing that's going to have make someone buy that over a Certina when they're at the airport. You know, oh, they make that themselves in Britain. That's just going to be a bit lost. That's more of an enthusiast KPI type of thing. So, I don't know. I think we'll expect big changes from Braemont in the next 5 years, regardless of if they're good or bad.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like golf courses. They say that it's always the third owner of a golf course that makes the money. So we've had the first owners and the English brothers. This guy's the second owner. It's the guy that he sells it to that will actually make the money. Unless, of course, we have an El Primero type thing and somebody goes into a loft in the wing or somewhere else and they find whatever it was that Steve McDonald was doing for the past 10 years in making Brement's in-house movement. And it's a revelation. There's this artisan movement. It just needs a little bit of
no.
work to make
That's
it do
over at Horage, I believe. You're gonna find those schematics over there.
But I'll give you a predict. The reason they won't do that, my prediction is, if this guy is smart, and he probably is, because he's buying and selling companies, they've got to build Bremont into something that would fit into a group. So it's got to fit into the Swatch group, into the Citizen group, etc. So they wouldn't. I think getting rid of the wing is probably a great idea. You want to buy a company that slots into a group. So the next 5 years, I would say, will be making a company that would fit, that would be acquirable. Someone just put Swatch Group buying Bremont by 2030. I mean, if you were in charge of Bremont, you would get your management around the table and go, how do we make this company an acquisition in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I agree. Right, let's get off the business chat, and we will have a look at
Why would Swatch Group buy anyone? They're struggling with their own brands as it is. You know, I think the question is more like who they are selling as opposed to who they are buying. I agree with the concept of building Bremont into something that would fit into a larger group. Just, you know, I'm not seeing Swatch Group ever doing that in the foreseeable future.
No, it would have to be someone that wasn't so staunchly Swiss as well, other than a couple, you know, like the Langas.
LVMH would do it through Catterton.
Yeah, Mr. Arnault's got enough money. He could probably buy Bremont, not too worry too much about it.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, let's talk about a watch from another British brand who seem to be going in an entirely different direction from Bremont, although they probably, they started off in probably the reverse position than they are now. Christopher Ward's valuation or average retail price is heading towards what Bremont, surpassing what Bremont have at their lower end. This is the hands-on debut, the Christopher Ward C12 local watch. I have thoughts about this, but let's get your thoughts. Kevin, Guy, have you guys handled this watch yourselves?
Not handled it.
Kevin, you were sworn to Pinky Promise Secrets.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yes,
Tell us a little bit about it.
I was fortunate enough to be at the launch party at BAFTA, saw the film, and my first impression is it's an amazing watch, absolutely, 100%. I'm not sure about the orange, however, I did have hands-on with it on Saturday with a Christopher Ward event with Red Bar Southeast, and it's warming to me. That particular colour is certainly warming to me. I do like the orange on a white rubber strap, perfect for summer. But the actual concept of it, there's touches of Armand Strong in there. There's touches of Joe Perigo. There's touches of all sorts of other brands as well, which I won't say. But yeah, I mean, it's for the design, the concept. I think we've got another future GPHG award winner. I really do. For that sort of money, it's outstanding value. Not sure about the colours overall, and certainly not the names. And Loco, yeah, bit interesting.
I just think of Four Loco, that like absolute trash drink that we drank in college back when it had a ton of caffeine and alcohol in it. I see C12 Loco, I'm just thinking like that sounds like an energy drink or some terrible malt liquor you get at the gas station.
I know where you're coming from, actually. I really do. But the overall concept is amazing. Absolutely. Looking forward to more colours in the future.
Okay, some quick judgment. Is it a hit? Is it a miss? Or is it a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Hit, miss, maybe. Guy, why is it a hit?
Oh, because I had a chat with Mike France and I just really like him. I think he's a nice guy.
You see, I think that's the problem. I think the people are nicer than the watches are getting that way. But anyway, go on.
So you don't buy the
I
watch,
think
you buy the
that
person.
picture puts me
Jeez.
off. I think it's very chunky for what it,
Yeah,
it
it is
feels
big
like. It
watch.
should be a slimmer watch, but I don't know. Kevin's seen it, but
It's not that chunky. They're definitely very wearable. 100%. Slips under the cuff.
I think
It does.
I think it's really nice for what it is. I like
Mm.
anyone that's bringing color into watches in a nice way, and especially into kind of a color into, bright colors with a kind of more complicated watch is not as, in a stylish way is quite a nice thing to see. I just think it looks kind of cool. I don't. It's between a hit and a maybe, but I like it. I wouldn't wear it. I wouldn't buy it,
Yeah.
but I do quite like it.
Kevin,
Love it.
fanboy.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely. Yeah, okay, I'm a fanboy. Yeah, absolutely. This is what Christopher Ward are trying to do. They're trying to elevate the brand, and instead of doing, unfortunately, what Bremont do is doing a tourbillon in gold, they're slowly but surely doing things slightly differently, slightly quirky, which of course this is their halo piece, isn't it? Effectively, and it's not unaffordable. Yes, it's a different price point to everything else, but this design interpretation of the 12, the vertical graining on some of the colors, it's absolutely stunning. And I know that price point is very concerning for them because I was speaking to the guys about this, and originally it was supposed to be in titanium, but that pushed the price up over the current price point. They wanted to get something in under 4K. If it was titanium, it would have been over that. So they do respect people's price points and what they want to achieve. And I think they've knocked it out of the park. I really do. It's a stunning piece. It really, really is. That's US dollars, not.
Okay,
And I think on price
sterling
point,
now.
I think their 3X model, where they're like this, we're selling it for 3 times what it costs us. They're very open about that. I mean, I think they should be a bit. As I said, they also give 2% of turnover to charity, which they don't ever talk about, and I think they should, and so big highlight to them for that. But I think when you're so clear about that, this is 3 times what it costs us, then the price, everyone understands that the value proposition there. So the price doesn't become that crazy.
Right, Kevin, put the lid back on the Kool-Aid. David, why is this a maybe?
Well, for one, I'm pretty much over these integrated lug design watches. I just be on board with them. And more of an issue, I think, is that they don't tend to wear very nicely, at least not on my wrist. And it's extremely rare that I see someone wear a watch like this and I think to myself, wow, that looks good on the wrist. Most of the time, it's just the way it stretches beyond the edge of the wrist and all the rest of it. It just looks ungainly. It's a nice object. As a design, I quite like. I used to like it before it was so overdone, but I could just, I love the orange. I love the dial. I love the value proposition. I'm just ready for this to be presented in something that is less trendy and a little bit more not traditional, but just something else other than this integrated lug design. But if it's if it's up your alley and if you think it looks good on you, then the maybe becomes a hit, and for me it's a miss. So that's why it's a maybe.
Ripley?
I'm kind of with David. I sort of wish that they hadn't gone the 12 route on it and just sort of let it be its own thing and kind of have this line of significantly more elevated models. That said, I also understand Chris Ward's sort of at the precipice of being like the indie brand for the mainstream. So it has to be a piece that has like widespread commercial appeal, and obviously the success of so many integrated bracelet watches, we may be bored with them, but they're still selling. I still see a bunch of like PRXs and Citizen Sonoyas on people's wrists these days. So it's obviously commercially viable. I like it. I kind of like that they do these things where it's so visibly not one of their core collection $1,000 watches. I think this is a good example of doing, flexing the movement in a very visible manner that isn't just skeletonization. When brands make their in-house versions of a movement and it's basically just a three-handed movement with a longer power reserve, it's really difficult to get the average person to understand why they should at all care that the brand made that versus using a standard reliable offering. When you skeletonize it, above a certain price point, you can do a lot of cool stuff. Below a certain price point, it's hard to make a regular skeleton movement look good, and the level of finishing that has to go into those components is difficult. So this is a nice balance where you don't have to have this crazy skeletonized architectural thing, which in and of itself is a divisive sort of style. And then you get the solid dial, which people don't object to, but it still showcases the mechanics and that this isn't, a standard ETA. So I think it does a lot well that makes it easy to understand and easy to like. I like the orange quite a bit. You know, this just seems to be a much more compelling value proposition than a lot of other things at this price point. And it is sort of unique. So for the person whose collection might top out at like 5-6 grand, this can be a nicer piece in their collection that gives them a taste of that Armin Strom, Chapek, NBNF, Gerard Perregaux type of life for a significantly more attainable price point that they can actually buy, enjoy, and not have to sacrifice their kids' college tuition or something like that.
Yeah, listen, I hear all of that. And I'm here for it all. And I'm a big Christopher Ward fan. I have a brand new one bought with money sitting here.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, what did you get? What did you get? You're just gonna hold up a cardboard box?
It's actually unopened as yet because it's a gift. So some, but it's a C63 Sealander GMT. I know a live unboxing, but that's £1,000. What's in here is about £1,000 worth. I think, first of all, the watch is a decent watch. I'm not sure that focusing on the really bright orange one is the way I would have gone. I think I would say, we've got these bright colors, but here's the standard one. I think there's a little bit too much of, look at our fancy colors here. The problem I have is the website is becoming an absolute shambles in terms of being able to find anything because they now have so many SKUs, so much variety that actually I think you're going to start to get into analysis paralysis. And the other problem is it's a great watch. It's £1,000. If I am not a watch geek, is there a danger that producing watches that really are starting to be at a premium level, in the UK terms, this is £3,795. If that is the watch that you land on when you go to the website, and the ones they're pushing hard are the expensive ones, you're actually going to be put off buying the bread and butter because you feel you're buying the cheap watch within the brand.
No, I don't think that's right. And also, I think the Belcanto was like 50% of their sales last year or something.
Yeah, I agree, but I think it will be interesting to see if the loco is as popular as the Belcanto. I think the Belcanto had a very specific zeitgeist that went with it, and it just exploded. I'm not sure that's repeatable. And if the brand is intending to advance to 3.5, 4 grand watches as being their standard, then great. But I think there's a danger that they make it more difficult for someone who's not a watch expert to go, I don't understand why this watch here is so much more expensive than this. Is there like less quality in it or something? The problem is the £1,000 watches that Christopher Robin are absolutely amazing quality. I just think
if you were talking about earlier about 2030, I see these guys going more to this kind of product over the next 5 years, and a lot less to the £1,000 dive watches that look like everyone else's £1,000 dive watches.
I think you're right. I think the question is, has any watch brand really successfully made the transition from being the £1,500 average to the 4,500, 5,000? I think
But I think
Oris
no, I think
tried it.
they have. I think they already have. I think
Mhm.
if you look at where their growth's from over the last year, I think didn't they like double in size, and it was all on the back
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
Belcanto.
all Belcanto, and having all your eggs in that's a zeitgeist watch. I don't think they can keep going selling Belcantos. Once you've got
But
one,
you've got to go. You've got to think. What do we do? That's I had a mentor. He kept saying to me, "Find out what works well and do more of it."
Mhm.
And the Belcanto works, so they're trying to do
Yeah.
something similar. So
Well, we shall
I mean, it's
see.
not going to. I don't think it's going to take over, the core range. I really don't. I think they're still going to stick to the 1,000, 2,000 pound dive watches, the GMTs. I don't think they're going to lose their core, lose their core business model by
Mhm.
moving upwards in SKUs and bigger profits on these products. I mean, this one was capped at 750, the
Yeah.
first drop, and they sold out in something like 36 hours. And then
Mhm.
there is a reason for that. They want to
Because
not
we're all mad, all
exactly.
absolutely barking
Yeah.
mad. Anyone that buys more
So
than
they want
one
to make
watch
sure that
is
people get the
just
products.
yeah. No,
There is
I
that.
mean
We're all mad.
Well,
We're all
yeah,
mad.
these
exactly.
are, I see
and
these
it's
more
quite
as Halo
cool.
pieces. I'm with Kevin on this
Mhm.
one. I don't think
Yeah,
this is going to become the
absolutely.
core collection, but I think it works both ways. The person who gets a affordable one says this was a great watch for $1,000. Well, let's see what the brand can do with 4,000. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then it kind of works the other ways, where some people who previously just overlooked Chris Ward, like, I don't need another Etta Salida diver. Oh, well, this is tangibly different. I operate in a price point of, Patek, whatever. This is pocket change.
Uh-huh.
And then they see this as now the one compelling offering. So I think it can
Mhm.
play to both markets, but I don't foresee this ever just becoming their bread and butter, because to make a watch like this and just make them, you can only make so many of them. You can't crank them out in the same way you do divers in every millimeter from 36 to 42. So
Mm. David, there's a question. Do you think people who are buying this watch are more likely to be, shall we say, $10,000 watch owners stepping down to this, or $1,500 watch owners stepping up to this?
I don't think we have to choose. I think it's both. I think it's a tempting proposition for both. If you are wearing a 10K watch that looks like every other 10K watch, if you are wearing a Submariner or whatever else,
Yeah.
or a Speedmaster or something like that, and you want to get something more exciting, usually it's more comfortable to buy something that is half the cost and say, okay, I might not lose quite so much money on this. I got a Submariner for 10K because that's where I feel safe and my money is safe. That's not within my comfort zone at all. It's the
Mhm.
truth for many people who spend 10K on a watch. They buy a safe purchase and make a safe purchase because they want to see some of that money come back to them at a later stage. If you buy an orange strap to Christopher Ward or whatever else for 5K, you're like, well, I guess, if I sell it for 2K, I still only have lost 3. That's different than buying a fun Moser for 25K or 30K and then being able
Yeah.
to shift it for 18K. So that, and also, stepping up. If you are into watches, chances are you are. If you're listening to this and you've spent, you've climbed the ladder from Psycho 5 and up, and you had your G-Shocks, you appreciate a fun watch, but you also want to tip your toe into proper watchmaking and stuff, then this, I guess, checks many of those and ticks many of those boxes. So I can totally see this working, and this is why it's so ingenious, because it works for both demographics. So that's great.
Okay, so final question on this then. Which happens first? Brement turn a profit, or Christopher Ward market their first 10K watch? Guy?
How easy.
The Christopher Ward 10K,
Okay, Christopher Ward 10K.
100%.
Kevin,
Yeah.
Christopher Ward 10K, or Brement make a profit?
Not sure either are ever going to happen.
or
Christopher will
neither.
never market a 10K watch. I don't think they will never ever market a 10K watch.
Okay, interesting. David?
Oh, easy. Definitely Christopher Ward. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one within like a couple of years at most. Maybe it
Uh-huh.
will be gold. It will be the cheapest gold
Diamonds.
something or whatever. Yeah.
It will be ethically sourced gold, ethically
Mm.
sourced diamonds, bright orange strap. Ripley, Bremen, or Christopher Ward?
I don't think Christopher Ward's going to release a 10K watch before something dramatic happens with Bremont. I'm careful not to say before Bremont turns a profit, because I think the likelihood of Chris Ward making a watch before Bremont turns a profit is probably higher. But if Bremont going under, if 6 years from now Bremont might not exist and Chris Ward's still holding like at 7K or something like that. So
Chances then, I did say that was the final question, but this is actually the final question. Chances of Christopher Ward being the future owners of Bremont, Guy?
Oh, God.
Well, do you know what? When Kevin was talking about selling the wing, now property,
absolutely
wise,
makes sense.
but that would make. But they have a manufacturer in Switzerland, so the chances of Christopher Ward picking up some of their assets in the
Fire
solvency sale,
God.
I'll go for.
Okay.
But probably not the brand. I don't think they'd want the brand.
Kevin.
But so
well, everybody
stuff.
Christopher. Well, I mean, bear in mind that this watch from Christopher Ward has no brand on it. Has no brand. Maybe they're just gearing up. They're slowly morphing into. There's going to be a little wing will appear on one side, little propeller.
Well, they don't have the name on it because
Compass.
what happened to Christopher Ward? He's like no longer part of the company. Who is he? But let's not look at it. We're looking forward to the future.
A new name. Right, let's move on. Let's move on to this from Ripley, who's had a chance of wearing this. If any resemblance to the recently released Christopher Ward is purely accidental. The R-Time AR-TO3ST Tourbillon watch. I love this. Ripley, you've got hands on with it. What did you think?
I love this too. A lot of people don't like these. They're really cool. This is their smallest model. The Art 01 was the first. We've covered it before. It exists in titanium and rose gold. This is the Art 03. Art 02 is still under development. It's a smaller version, but because the movement it's a singular object, the movement is mounted directly to the case, the bridges. There's no main plate or anything. The case itself is constructed on this one in stainless steel. They also are making a yellow gold one. But to make a smaller watch, it's not like a movement in a watch. You have to make a smaller whole movement. They've relocated the function selector from the giant crown that was on the previous ones to this smaller pusher there, kind of at 4 o'clock. You can still see through the side of the case. And then the other big critique of the original one, aside from it just being a very large piece, was that it was just too skeletonized. They did that on the Art 01 because you could really see how the bridges extended past the bezel and mounted in the case. On this one, they still wanted to retain that effect, but they realized people don't necessarily want to look at a lot of wrist hair all the time. And so what those blue things you're seeing isn't a main plate or plates in any capacity. They're these decorative plates that are positioned at different planes between the actual sculptural bridges. Keep in mind, all the bridges and gears are crafted from solid white gold, but the case is steel and sapphire. So it fills in all the gaps, but it doesn't obscure any of the mechanical parts, which is kind of genius. So you can look at all of the same components that you would on the Art 01 in this different, smaller, more truncated movement. But you have this blue backdrop that kind of spans the entirety of what would otherwise be clear in the case. And it costs about $250,000.
Yeah.
Limited edition of 30 pieces.
Just to go back, breaking new beat. We're all buying Bremont. This is the strategy meeting. I like the idea. Let's have a crowdfund. Dear Phil Ackman, we would like to buy Bremont. Yours sincerely, a blog to watch community. Right, let's hit miss maybe on this. On the count of 3. Is it hit? Is it miss? Or is it maybe 1, 2, 3, go? Hit, miss. Oh, it's a top line of misses and a bottom line of hits. Guy, why is it a miss? You Luddite, you.
It feels like some strange glitch in the Matrix when you're showing this watch after the last one at, 50 times the price.
Yeah. And with a Bremont endurance strap on it.
I mean, David has to hate it after what he said about the bracelet on the other one. And you can hardly see the pans when they get lost in the design.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'd rather have a small house. Get an Airbnb house to rent out for 210 grand instead of that on my wrist.
It's not
There's
either or if
nothing-
you're buying this watch. You already have all the
Yeah.
houses you need. This is the
there's
is the
just nothing-
trivial.
there's-
You
there's
are
nothing I like
Airbnb.
about it. It doesn't. There is no way you could put that in front of 1,000 people, and there is no way they would say it's worth over 200 grand.
Hmm.
Um,
I don't know. Let's
I
try
just-
it. Let's get one. Let's go to Buchanan Street and try it. Oxford Circus. Let's give it a go. Here, sir. Oh, where's my watch gone? Yeah. Okay, doke. Kevin, you give it a miss as well.
I certainly did. I mean, we talked about last week about legibility. I agree with Guy. You can't see the hands. You don't know what time it is, and it's the design is not that interesting to me for you to spend £500,000 on. I just can't see why anybody would spend that sort of money on this particular piece. I just can't get my head around it. I really can't. To me, it's an awful design, and it's definitely a miss. No wonder they've made a limited number of it. What is the diameter of it? Massive on. I take they're your wrists, Ripley.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
Ripley's
the
chicken
picture?
wrists.
They are
Yeah, it
30
looks massive.
39, I think 38, 39.
Is
Yeah,
it
it's actually
really?
it's a 34 millimeter watch.
the wrists on that skinny Ripley.
Yeah, it's I've got quite small wrists. These wear quite large. You should go see me with the full size one of these in a past article. It is pushing the upper limits of what's possible.
Hmm. David.
I'm so confused. This is basically it looks like a watch that I've always wondered what a watch would look like if nobody designed it. This is basically just a bunch of watchmakers like let's do this, and the idea is novel, even though I don't see the technical benefit of not having a main plate at all, because it still looks heavy AF since they've used so much white gold and steel and whatever. So if you don't use a main plate, then make it thin and make it light, and then this whole thing is just basically a bunch of wheels and plates and stuff thrown inside a very, very dull and slightly disproportionate looking case. It literally is the complete non-existence of design. It really is, which is fantastic in a way. If you look at it, it has sort of a mini track and some hour markers and some hands to fulfill its original function, because after all, we are engineers and we have to tell the time. But we have not given two thoughts apparently to, like, the hour markers look like they are circles, but the hands are angular. The whole thing is it's just so random. And the price, I was shocked. I thought this would be like maybe a fraction of that. But at the same time, I see they've put a lot of work into the engineering of it. I'm sure this is like a very important project to whoever has worked on it. I wish them well. I just can't fathom. It's just so it's basically the uninvention of watch design in a way, for $250,000. That's just so weird to me.
For those who are watching on YouTube or who are watching on the Spotify video player, you can see the previous one that Ripley reviewed, which is somewhat larger. What I don't understand is why the larger one is cheaper than the new one. Is this not?
Maybe it was just an old exchange rate.
Yeah, old exchange rate. I mean, I did write this up post announcement of tariffs that the U.S. dollar is not what it was 4 weeks ago.
Well, Ripley, you give it a hit.
It's a hit. I inexplicably love what this brand does. They're one of those things where you kind of have to handle them to get the full appreciation and the effect. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. Is it a sensible way to spend the money? Absolutely not. But I think that would apply to pretty much any six-figure timepiece. At that price point, it's not this or, it's not this or a house or a boat or a car. It's this and whatever else you want. This is kind of the trivial purchase. It's quite a bit more wearable than the super skeletonized Art 01. I'd still rather have the Art 01, even though it just doesn't fit my wrists. I just like to fondle it and look at the object. But yeah, these are just cool. I just inexplicably like them. And honestly, if someone put a gun to my head and you said you had to go spend like $250,000 of someone else's money on one watch, then you couldn't keep or sell or anything like that, I might very well be taking it over to Art Time and picking something up, just because it's not the RM. The Richard Mille is kind of just like the uninformed 6-figure watch purchase. It's kind of what you see on like rappers and athletes and everything. If you see another person with one of these, you're probably going to have a cool conversation with them because they've spent an exorbitant amount of money on something that has, doesn't have that same resale value or clout or anything. The brand was just launched 2 weeks ago. So or 2 years ago rather. So, I mean, it's, yeah, I just really like these. I have no idea why it's, if I try to rationalize it, none of it would make any sense, but I just like to hold these and play with them.
It's a £250,000 watch with a Velcro strap. Need I say more?
I mean, what do you want on it? I think a deployment buckle would be nice, but
it would just be so de rigueur. It needs to be Velcro, yes, because that's how you decide.
For $250,000, they could just include a president bracelet, from Rolex. Just say, hey, I just say, so it's better value. You kind of put it on the watch, but
it actually comes with Velcro, the company, when you buy the watch.
Well, the cool thing about the strap, if we want to get really technical, in the previous version, there was one that had a buckle, and then they also had a Velcro option.
Yes.
This one, similar to the Ulysses Nardin Diver Air Strap, the Velcro buckle part secures with 2 pieces of Velcro. There's the one that loops through it, but then the black one on the connecting side is also adjustable, so you can better center the clasp and fine tune it to your wrist size. So that's a step in.
The world's most complicated micro adjustment is what we're saying.
No, it's just Velcro. I mean, this is the world's easiest micro adjustment.
All right, okay. Breaking New Beats was apologizing for doing drugs while he was watching. So I'm curious to what the second crown is for. It's the mode selector, isn't it?
Yeah, before you'd press the tip of the crown and the crown was just one big piece. That's just a separate push piece that engages the column wheel operated function selector. So similar to chronograph, you push it, column wheel turns, except rather than starting a chronograph complication, it switches between winding, neutral, and time setting modes for the crown. So the crown doesn't pull out at all. It's a singular kind of fixed object that just rotates.
Yeah. There we go. Right. We will stop chatting about that one and move on to our final for today. Ripley, something else you have reviewed. This is the actually affordable Citizen Surato Ultra Thin Watch. I do like this a lot.
Oh, I love this thing.
Tell us about it.
I politely asked them to send me an invoice instead of a return label. I like this one so much. It's such a good value. It's sort of like the takedown version of an EcoDrive 1, which is their like mega thin light powered one. Well, the EcoDrive 1s can sell for, over $1,000 up to several $1,000s, right up into the Citizen territory. This full retail $375 on sale right now for Earth Day for like $281.30 or something like that. It's under $300. It's shockingly thin, like sub 5 millimeters. It's like 4.71 stainless steel case, light powered movement, really kind of interesting texture on the dial. It's just a cool, super thin watch. And because it's eco drive, you don't have to deal with the headache of, ultra thin mechanical watchmaking, which can be very expensive to repair and maintain and all of that. This is just kind of a set it and forget it piece. But I mean, the value proposition for it, you can see even this same case shape on Citizen EcoDrive 1 models, which are like priced at a couple thousand, few $1,000s. So this really just sort of seems like a weirdly good value proposition. Obviously, it doesn't have the same movement, but really cool watch, 38 mil wide and 4.71 thick.
Okay, is it a hit? Is it a miss? Or is it a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Hit. Kevin is the holdout. He's a hit as well. There we go. Great guy. Thoughts?
I've gone first every time.
That's because you're first on my screen.
I really like it. I really like how they've got it really thin. The only thing I would say though is I think where it's a Citizen is too high up towards the 12. It needs to come down a bit, and EcoDrive is a bit low compared. Or they could have put EcoDrive underneath Citizen, or not even had it on at all. But I think there's a big gap between like the center and the bottom of the logo, which I think looks wrong slightly. But I think it's really cool to have a watch that thin at that price that looks kind of stylish and understated. And it's nice to have a quartz watch which doesn't have a ticking second hand, so it can still look classy. Um, so I can see why you wanted to keep it, Ripley. I like it, especially on your thin
Cool.
wrists.
I'm waiting for Guy to make a comment as the strap magnet on the
I quite
strap.
like the
It
strap. I
does.
think the
The
strap
strap does look
suits
like
it.
it's been cut out by a Stanley knife from just a big swad of leather. But so it may be the only thing that really needs an upgrade. But for 370 odd bucks, it's not bad. It's not too shabby at all. Kevin, what do you think? Kevin's either muted or doing his
Speechless. He's just speechless, basking
speechless,
in the glory of
absolutely
Japanese
speechless.
Absolutely
engineering.
speechless.
Yeah, just speechless, Kevin. Try speaking now, Kevin, rather than being speechless.
Okay, I do think it's a hit, 100%. I do agree with you about the strap. That's the first thing that needs an upgrade. It does look very, very cheap and tacky. However, under $400, it's a no-brainer. I love that textured dial. I mean, if you took off the Citizen Eco Drive, you could swear it was a Grand Seiko dial. It's so beautifully done. I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
And the dial's
Re-
transparent because the light still has to
Ripley
pass through
has
it.
amazing. Oh, okay. But
But
never
you can't
mind.
see it. You can't see that it's transparent. It's really weird when you look at it. It almost looks like there's an asymmetric micro perforation, like a super tight knit sponge, but linear sort of fashion, almost bark textured. It doesn't in any way look transparent. So I
Mm.
can only imagine that whatever structure they're using itself allows light to pass through. And I mean, it doesn't need all that much anyway, but they're doing a really good job making a dial that doesn't look like it's a solar watch.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah.
David,
Impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, it's a good value proposition. I wish it had, slightly differently sized hands. On some of the pictures, they're very difficult to tell apart. Which one is which. And when you have, such a, so few dial elements and components, their proportions, become that much more important when you have. I admire the fact that it's not a busy dial. It looks great. The texture really comes across, and I think that's cool. It's also large ish, so you have to have like really like tree trunk of wrists for this to look really good, but of course they are thin, so they will wear comfortable nevertheless. I just feel like this is a bit of an odd watch. I'm not sure, it's just not as elegant as I would like for it to be, or as it first impression is, wow, that's a dress watch, and I look at it and then it's just yeah, I think to make it look a little bit more refined would have cost $0 in the sense of like manufacturing costs and whatever else, but they just didn't do it, and that's a bit of a shame. With perfect proportions, this would be such an amazing watch, but I just can't get over that it's 80% there at most.
Rip, Ripley, what percentage there is it?
Um, I'll give it like a 93. I wish the minute hand was a bit longer. The dial placement for the text, I think I agree with Guy. It could be tweaked a bit. I mean, I think the strap's fine. Like most Citizen watches, it's decent quality. It doesn't necessarily look super resplendent. It's 21 millimeter lugs, which is a minor quibble. Um, I, I I've got small wrists, so I wish it was a little bit had a smaller diameter, and I think that would also remedy some of the issues with the spacing of the hands, and would probably also get you down to a 20 millimeters strap and make that life easier for you. It's got, so that's extra 7%. It's really easy to overlook when you think about that. You can buy it right now on sale for like 20 bucks more than like a moon swatch. And so kind of within for the value proposition as a comparative purchase, I kind of have to give it the full nod as a firm hit. No watch is perfect, but when the shortcomings seem a lot more permissible when it's a sub $300 watch versus a $30,250,000 watch.
Good stuff. Grand. Yeah, I just love it. I think just it does exactly what you need a good cheap watch to do. Looks good, doesn't cost you a lot of money, and is completely quibble free in terms of being eco drive. I think if you just wanted a fire and forget, or if you're just buying a a nicely priced watch as a gift, I think this would be absolutely perfect to get somebody going. Except, as has been pointed out by both Ripley and in the YouTube chat, the 21mm strap size
I
is a
was
bit of
going to
an
pick up
oddball.
on that as well. I think that's unforgivable. That like,
Unforgivable.
The one saving
why?
grace is now that
Put
more
nil on it, we can
Rolex
change the
models
strap.
now that more Rolex models have opted for the odd number millimeters, I am seeing more third-party straps in like 19 and 21 floating around. So I guess there's that.
There we go. Cool. Right. We didn't actually do a location check, which means we didn't do a what is Ripley wearing check. So let's finish with that. Ripley.
You see the wall means I'm
today?
in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm just wearing an Apple Watch because it had the alarm for remind me to go do this tonight. But more importantly, what we've got Breguet on the hat. They've got some interesting stuff in the works, and the a blog to watch octagonal integrated bezel. I'm not sure what the proper name of this one is, but it's the gray one and it's printed, and this is a particularly soft material, so quite nice. And you can't see it, but I'm wearing the pants that they give you on the Qatar Airways if you fly business class. Those pajama things.
Okay. Good. Breguet baseball hats. That doesn't. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm getting that. It's very nice baseball cap, but it just doesn't feel like a baseball cap kind of a brand. Feels more like a Panama hat kind of a brand, or a bowler hat or something with the Breguet dial.
I would love if
bands
they
on
gave
it.
us one of those at Watches and
Bowler-
Wonders. Like, please
bowler
put that in the
hats.
gift bag and like.
Bowler hat, excellent. Maybe that'll be the first swag that the newly incorporated Christopher Ward Bremen Limited produces when it fires up at Watches and Wonders in 2030. Right, good stuff. Well, thank you all for joining us on the show. We will continue briefly in the live channel, A Blog to Watch Weekly Live. For those who are tuned in the chat, thank you. For everybody else who's listening to the podcast, yeah, great. Thanks for listening. Speak to you all again in a week's time. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye-o.
And we continue just briefly in the chat. So Rolex 3% price increase, expected, unexpected. Everybody else is going to follow because Rolex have done it. What do we think?
Well, if Rolex is only bumping at 3, I feel
Yeah.
like that's kind of putting the ball in some other brands' courts as far as, all right, are you going to jack it up to 31 because that's a number floating around?
Yeah, I think somebody very smart in Rolex. Well, we need to put up a little, but let's just make it really difficult for everybody else to put the prices up where they actually need to put them up, and we'll just keep it nicely suppressed. It'll not look too much, but it'll just be a challenge to Omega and the rest. Go on then. Just you try and put your price up only 3% and see your profit margins are at Richemont and Swatch Group in the next 12 months. Anyone else got
Probably done a
thoughts on this?
backhander to get around the tariffs. Giving Trump a backhander to get around the tariffs anyway, and they're just putting a 3% to make some extra cash.
Do you think so? If we see Trump wearing a brand new, I mean, what if you're a Rolex executive and you're gifting Trump a Rolex in the way that Vulcain would gift the presidents, what would you be digging out?
No, I think they've probably got. You need to check Rolex's balance sheet somehow and find the £1 million worth of Melania coin that they own.
They diversify their assets in a remarkable manner, more than any other company. From real estate, I would not be surprised if they've got some crypto. Now, what coins, God knows, but that's
definitely a bit of Melania coin and Trump coin in there, or Baron coin, whatever's coming next.
Part of the blockchain. Good stuff, right? Well, if no one else has any comments to make on that aren't going to get us into too much trouble, then we will say goodbye to those. Thank you, everyone who's been in the chat this morning, for joining us. That's been
Thank you.
Fun. Do tune in again next week and tell a friend. We'll see you all later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.